everyone. Welcome to our fellow reflection session. My name is Leah Cohen, and today we're going to go over our backgrounds, how we got into this work, what we've enjoyed during our time at Climate Resolve, and any advice for future fellows or anyone else joining the team. So I'll just go ahead and get started with a little bit of background about myself. As I mentioned, my name is Leah. I grew up here in LA, specifically in the San Fernando Valley. I went to UCLA for college, studied international development, public affairs, and environmental policy. I did some different work before, in like campaigns and legal work and policy before I joined the team here at Climate Resolve as an outreach and planning fellow. During my time at Climate Resolve, I've had the pleasure of working on 4 different projects, which is pretty common for fellows. We get to kind of see a variety of different work that happens here at the organization. I was involved as a sort of project coordinator on the Baldwin Hills Community Resilience and Access Plan, which is a grassroots community planning effort for the Baldwin Hills parklands to increase access to green space for South LA residents. I also got to help on the Commerce Sustainable Transportation Equity Project grant, which was about kind of starting to address the many decades of environmental injustice in Southeast LA, specifically in Commerce, through urban greening, tree planting, new electric buses and shuttles and bike lanes and transit-oriented development planning. I was also working on the Ladwp Community Partnership Outreach Grant, which is a program that seeks to educate CD7, Council District 7 residents about extreme heat, climate impacts, and available energy conservation and water, or energy efficiency and water conservation resources, especially in the valley where there's a lot of extreme heat. So we would do community presentations and education and canvassing and all kinds of things out in the field and online. And lastly, I was part of a statewide program called Partners Advancing Climate Equity, which was a project of the Strategic Growth Council and a bunch of coalition organizations across the state to bring together climate justice leaders and build capacity of on-the-ground organizers to draw in state funds, build their ability to do this work in their communities, and also build community and cohort among leaders across the state. It was a really great program that we hope to continue. So that's just a kind of a snapshot of the wide variety of kind of local, regional, state work that we get to do here at Climate Resolve and that I was a part of and look forward to continuing. So I'm going to pass it on to my colleague, Natalie, to talk a little bit about her background and what she was able to do here at Climate Resolve.
Thank you, Leah. Hi, everybody. My name is Natalie. My pronouns are she, hers, and I was the Community Resilience Fellow here with Climate Resolve. I worked on 3 main projects, the first one being the Tree Ambassador project or program. So I teamed up with Tree Ambassadors in 2 communities, Canoga Park and Boyle Heights, and we worked on getting more street trees and yard trees in areas that don't have a lot of tree canopy coverage. So by the end of the fellowship, we were able to plant over distribute over 200 trees in total. And then my next project was with Accelerating Resilience Los Angeles, which was with Chase. And that project had 2 main components. One project involved doing outreach to the council district offices throughout LA. So we met with 13 council district offices to educate them regarding the importance of resilience hubs for underserved communities to adapt to things like extreme heat or wildfire smoke. And then my next project, it was a project that was onboarded late on just because I was more focused on resilience hub outreach, but I also worked with the Boyle Heights Arts Conservatory to design flyers and promote events. And then I also worked with Promesa Boyle Heights, which focused on meeting weekly with the promotoras to urge the city to adopt the community plan. So we worked on doing that. And then my last project was the Southern California Resilience Initiative. And so that was actually a report that focused on how extreme heat and wildfire affects the conditions of indoor and outdoor workers. So there was a lot of literature that needed to be reviewed, interviews that needed to be conducted, and the report finalized in 18 recommendations at the state, local, and federal levels to better protect workers and their health. And I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Michelle and talk to you a little bit about her work in the Inland Empire.
Cool, thanks, Natalie. My name is Michelle Baron. I live and grew up in the Inland Empire. Right now I live in Fontana, California. I went to college at the University of California, Riverside, both for my bachelor's degree in sustainability studies and my master's in public policy. While I was working there, I also worked at their office of sustainability, and that's kind of where my passion started growing a lot more. I learned about environmental justice, and as I was like living through environmental justice, seeing like all the warehouses being built around, doing all that kind of stuff. My passion just kept growing. And then after that, I started here with my fellowship at Climate Resolve. I'm the Inland Southern California Climate Collaborative Fellow, or the ISC3, since that is like a mouthful. And so the ISC3 is a collaborative of sustainability leaders from Inland SoCal. It's composed of Riverside, San Bernardino, and Imperial counties. They're just sustainability leaders who come together to work together to help bring build kind of resilience in the area. They network together, build different ideas around what's happening in the region, overall just building climate resilience in the area, which is very, very much needed. Trying to bring in more climate funding to the area too. Build up capacity and just overall funding. And that was like one of the bigger projects that I worked on. I had to like facilitate different meetings, try to recruit some guest speakers, also recruiting like additional members to the collaborative, especially in Imperial County. We don't have much of representation from Imperial County. A little bit more difficult to get it over there, but we're trying to do that. Another kind of project that I was involved here in Climate Resolve was helping with the Boots team here, which is just like overall just building climate capacity for cities that need it. And so we were helping the city of Rialto. I think they're part of like don't quote me on this, but I think it's like a 3-year program or 2-year program. This year was just the starting of helping them out, kind of all that out. And kind of another project that I was working on is a report. The Inland Southern California Landscape Analysis Report. I think that's what it's called. I should know because I'm working on it. So it's basically like a basic overview of the region of Inland SoCal. So it's Riverside, San Bernardino, and Imperial County. And it's basic like demographics and climate impact overview of the whole 3 counties, so the whole region. And also seeing like what kind of climate action is happening in the region. There is climate action happening already. Just highlighting that. And then also just putting kind of like financial resources there, like grant writing tips or grant writing resources, if there's any kind of grant writing assistance programs in the region. It's all listed in that report, as well as like how else you can get involved. I also included like some description of the Inland Southern California Climate Collaborative in there. We're looking to do a version 2 of it. We just sent it out to get reviewed and see like, what is needed in there. We're hoping to put more kind of community voices in there. Hopefully that's what future fellows can work on. Thank you. Passing it back to you.
Thank you so much, Michelle. So as you can hear, everybody is doing awesome work and getting to build on all of our skill sets and experience and identities. And so it's pretty exciting. I think a question that comes to us a lot as young professionals or just in the field is, why climate? Why do we want to work in climate? Why do we want to spend our time doing this? What do we see in this space? And I think we can go around and share on that. I think for me, there's a lot of reasons. I think I've been reflecting on it as I'm coming to the end of this fellowship and considering what I'm doing moving forward. It's like, why climate work and how do I see it continuing to be a part of my own career journey? And I think I didn't start like college or anything as like environmental science or focus particularly on environmental issues. I went in curious about economic development, about gender equity, about public policy. And I went in and kind of, as I dove more into all these issues that I cared about, I kind of saw that this underlying sort of through line and thread was climate change, and that in many ways it was going to exacerbate all of those existing inequalities economically, gender, racially, like across all kind of intersections and systems. Climate is sort of like a force multiplier, right? Where it, if there's negative things, it increases all of those already existing inequalities. On the other hand, because it has that underlying quality, I think it also is a lever where if we think really creatively about climate solutions and transformation and solutions that lift people up and lift those who are most affected up, I think it has the ability to advance solutions and justice across other areas that were already broken before and that already needed attention. So it's not, I think the place for me I'm less interested in environmental work that is super siloed as like environmental work and more interested in how does climate touch all of our lives and how do we build up solutions that lift everyone up. And I think that at Climate Resolve, we do that in a really unique way where we're like an environmental justice organization that specifically works with communities on the ground who are not usually involved in this work. But we're also not just thinking about environmental solutions. We're thinking about anything that involves adapting to climate change. So that we can, that broadness allows us to think creatively about what actually increases the ability of future generations to thrive, and thinking about like art and creativity and community as we move forward. So to me, that's what's exciting. I think all of us are in this fight together, and climate can be really daunting, but because it's so big and affects everyone, I think it also has the ability to create change and to uplift community through the co-benefits of climate action. That is exciting to me as a young professional and someone who wants to contribute to a more livable world for myself and for future generations. So I'm excited to be in community in this work. And I think Climate Resolve gives a very pragmatic place, kind of humble culture where we like know that we're addressing these issues, but we also know we're not like saving everything. We're just kind of working in our communities to prepare and to be better equipped. So that's what's kind of in it for me. I'm going to pass it along to Natalie.
Thank you, Leah. I feel like I've been through so many different like occupations, and I feel like one thing that always resonated with me was the environment that people live in. That, you know, when people's environments aren't great, you know, it exacerbates a lot of their mental health conditions. And something I forgot to mention was that I actually had a lot of mental health work before this. And like, as I kept working with clients, I realized that, yeah, at some point, like I could help them, you know, with their individual problems to some level. I could give them those coping skills, but if their environment at large wasn't going to change, well, it's harder to kind of change that individual action. So that's when I really wanted to look at people more at the macro level, because I feel like it's important to create environments where people feel safe, relaxed, and, you know, just, yeah, feel at peace. And I think this is when I started getting into climate work. When I actually left my job as a counselor, I volunteered at a local nonprofit, and I worked on a native plant demonstration garden. And, you know, I realized how therapeutic that was for me, but also like it reminded me how much like at my old house, like I used to have a lot of garden. I used to have like a huge garden because of my dad. He was always working out in the yard. And so like when my mom actually moved to an apartment, it was like we didn't have access to that green space anymore. And so the first thing that we would see when we would walk out were just like a bunch of highways, freeways, no trees, no nothing. Yeah, so a lot of my work became focused on like how to bring these spaces to people, but also how to increase access to them. And I actually did workshops with Nature for All, like learning about like my watersheds in my community and learning about like how LA actually does have natural spaces, maybe not the best taken care of or the most visited by like local residents, but we do have it here. And so like I think it just inspired me to motivate people to care more about like our green spaces, but also understand that access to green spaces is also like an environmental justice issues, particularly in communities that have been like historically redlined, have had a lot of like factories or a lot of like industrial businesses built like in their community. So I realized that I really wanted to make sure that people had access to these spaces. And when I came about Climate Resolve, I actually what really drew me in was I think the Tree Ambassador program. So I was like, wow, this connects exactly with what I want to do. And I think having that opportunity really made me realize that a lot of us are really disconnected to how like it's not just the environment or just the people, like we do have to see both at the same time. And I think that's the hard thing, right? That we can't really prioritize one or the other, that both these things, they need to be addressed together because like we have humans who are like, a lot of our undervalued people are really suffering at the expense of climate change. And then we also have the environment, which is also like not responding well to a lot of the human changes, but we have to see both in order to move forward with change and, create solutions that protect the environment, but also protect people. And I think that's where people kind of get lost, where it's just like, kind of like what Leah said, where it's like, oh, let's just protect the environment, but it's not just that. Humans are a part of the environment. And, we live in this world, so it's important for us to take care of it and have that reciprocal relationship. But yeah, when I came across Climate Resolve, I think it made me realize like how the city is like city planning really affected people's relationship with even with trees. You think that trees are something beautiful for everybody, but a lot of people in this, or the people I came across, were like really like they didn't want them there either because of the poor infrastructure they created or because like they were just like a nuisance to like maintain. And it made me realize how much the city really affects people's perception of something that is beneficial to them in the long run. So yeah, so I think a lot of my work has brought me here to this space on how to make environments where people can feel safe, comfortable, and secure. And I think again, like climate change and all these things happening at a bigger level really just kind of trickle down to us at the individual level. So I really want to work on addressing these issues on a wider level so they don't have to trickle down at that capacity. And so I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Michelle.
Thanks, Matt. You guys are such great inspirations to everybody. And yeah, I totally agree with like everything you guys said. But yeah, like what got me into climate was actually like ever since I was little, yeah, my family would always visit. We would go to Mexico to like mostly to my mom's side of the family, and they live like in a little ranchito, right, which is like a little kind of pueblo. And yeah, it's not like this like expensive ranch with like cattle and everything like that. Like no, it's really like little pueblito, like out in like by mountains and kind of a little more secluded from the city. And yeah, it was just like always seeing how much more directly that they were impacted by climate change. And like it's like something that I didn't even know of like when I was like little. Like I didn't know what climate change was. I didn't know what sustainability was. I didn't know what environmental justice was. I just saw it happening, like over there, like if there's a drought going on, there's not enough water, like you won't be able to take a shower, you won't be able to like wash your dishes or wash your clothes. And yeah, it was like something that we would always hear like my grandma complain about, or like my grandpa and my tias and tios, like they would always be saying like, yeah, we're like, there's less and less water each year. And like my grandpa too, he was kind of like a goat herder, I guess you would call it. Like they sustained their lives based off of goats, right? That they would like sell their milk or sell goats for like meat. And so he would go out and take them out every day so that they can graze on, the mountains. And like every single time he said that he would have to take them like further and further for them to get like, like good food to eat, good grass, or like more water for them to get. And yeah, and even like in my little trips whenever I would go like hiking in like all those mountains and stuff, there would always be like kind of like places where like water would collect, and like every single year I would go, those little places would get like drier and drier, and like some years there'd be like no water, and yeah, it literally looked like like Mars or something out there, and it was like crazy. But yeah, again, I was little. I didn't know what climate change was, and it was like happening right in front of me. So yeah, I always felt kind of like connected to the environment and to like people, and how that kind of relationship between the environment and the people are like, so like they're like, we live here, this is like the only planet that we have. And yeah, we need the earth to sustain our lives. And yeah, I would see it like so clear as day. Um, and yeah, that kind of like started my passion, and like how I got super like into like the environment. I always cared about the environment, about animals, about people, and I always wanted to do something to help out my community and help out the environment, and help out my family too. Well, it's like a big thing that I can't just like go and like solve climate change for them, but in whatever way I can, I want to try to do that. But yeah, and like when I was over here, as a person of color and someone who's not rich, both my parents came from Mexico. They crossed the border. We're not rich people. So the communities that we were living in, they were always placed like next to, there was like factories like super close. There was warehouses super close. And then yeah, just recently, like I moved to Fontana like I want to say like 5 years ago. And it was crazy like how fast warehouse development has happened in the IE. Yeah, just because they see it as a very cheap place to buy land, and super like, easy to, I won't get too political, but yeah, it was like super like easy to like, get economic development and say that that's the way to prosper in that area. But yeah, it's damaging our air over there. Our quality is like one of the worst in the nation. And yeah, just seeing like houses being like torn down like super fast, and then these warehouses being built up, and like we have no like not that many parks around us, and even if there is parks, there's like a warehouse right by it, which is like absolutely crazy. Like literally like right next door is a warehouse, not even like 100 feet of difference. And then we're like stuck in between freeways and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that also is just like, wow, like we're actually like living in this, like we're breathing this, we're like the communities of color, disadvantaged like communities, like we're actually like going through this, like someone has to do something. Not I mean, yeah, like people are already doing something, but we all have to do something. And yeah, it was like crazy too, just like studying about it too. Like once I got into sustainability studies, and then like I got into like environmental justice and reading about it, and then actually like seeing it in like my own like lived experiences. Like yeah, it's crazy. Really sad, but kind of what kind of fuels my passion for this and wanting to do something. And which is why like I'm pretty grateful for this fellowship, which was helping out in the Inland SoCal region, and being able to be around like sustainability leaders in the region who actually like, care about the region and want their communities to prosper too in the face of climate change. But yeah, I think there's like a lot more that kind of fueled my passion for climate too. But yeah, that's all for right now. I can pass it back to Leah.
Thank you both for that wisdom. I think super insightful, and I think it shows that a lot of people like all kind of social movement work, a lot of people come to it from our own personal experiences, and like we tie in our academic and professional experience, or it maybe affirms our own experience, but for a lot of us it's really personal, and I think that can be like tiring in a career, but it can also be fuel if you sustain it and find a way to channel it. And I appreciate you both for being in this fight, even when having to like face all of those realities in our personal lives as well. So I think the next thing we want to talk about, maybe on a little lighter note, is more just in terms of our fellowship experience, what has been most rewarding or fun or kind of contributed to this year. I can go first for myself. It always comes down, I think, to people and connections. I think just among the three of us, it's been super fun to build out these friendships with people who we share values, we share interests, and we get to work together, but also to get to know each other and in our own lives and be in this as we move forward in our careers and in our lives. I think the team at Climate Resolve has been amazing and so supportive and has really made this experience just like a lot of fun. I think we bring fun to climate work in a way that I didn't find in academia, or in prior experiences where there's just really good culture. But I think in terms of specific experiences, we've been in a mostly remote fellowship, but some in-person time. And I think a lot of those have been stood out to me as really fun just because I think I've really enjoyed the kind of background work and the day-to-day work, and just digging into the projects. But in terms of getting to connect with everyone, I loved some of our outreach days that I got to do out all over LA. I loved in my Baldwin Hills work getting to do our actual like field trip to the parklands and also in Commerce. So I helped like run stakeholder like resident advisory groups in both Baldwin Hills and in Commerce, and getting to just meet those folks and go out and tours and think about the spaces that we were planning around was a lot of fun. And then I also one particularly fun memory was, we were just reflecting on this the other day, was through my PACE program, after our like project team that put together this program over like 2 years, even before I had gotten there. The whole thing was virtual. And so we did a meetup in real life in Sacramento in the springtime. And that was so lovely just to meet people's families and share space and food and celebrate the culmination of what was a pilot program that was finishing its first round at the time. So I don't know, I've really enjoyed the work. I really enjoyed a lot of the things that I mentioned and that we've worked on, but I think some special rewarding experiences have been to come face to face with both my colleagues and with the communities that we work with, and just like show up to that in person, just because it's special in this time that we're living in. But yeah, I'm gonna hand it over. Let me switch directions, hand it over to Michelle.
The mute button, gosh. Thanks, Leah. I think I totally agree with you in that Climate Resolve is such a supportive place. I've felt like nothing but support here, like from everyone, like literally everyone. I didn't even get the chance to like work with anybody, like well, not everybody, a lot of people here, sadly. But yeah, like even then, like it was just anything but like support, like whatever questions I had or anything like that, they were just always there to answer, always offering help, always offering, if I needed like a recommendation or something like that, they were always there, super, super supportive, like literally super supportive. And yeah, and the people who I did work with too, they helped me grow a lot and helped me like with like the report that I was working on, like different kind of like websites or like how I should get data, all these kind of things that maybe I didn't know before, like how to use Ladwp. Like I didn't know how to like really use it. They kind of taught me a little, yeah, they taught me, yeah, tons of like little things like that. Yeah, overall super supportive. But yeah, I want to say like one thing that maybe was one of my most rewarding experiences and was maybe like, yeah, we were kind of like sometimes with the Inland Southern California Climate Collaborative, yeah, some of our members sometimes, they don't usually like sometimes they don't show up to meetings and stuff like that. So we'll like reach out, or when we're like sending like membership dues, like the emails for that, they'll respond with like, oh, we can't pay this, because we're like a small organization. Yeah, I remember one time, one of the organizations, I forget what they were called. I think it was with the riot. They responded in Spanish. So it was like really cool to be able to use kind of my Spanish and like let them know that, oh, it's okay, like you guys can still like be part of ISC3, like you guys don't have to like pay for it, like because there was well, she was saying that they're like a small organization, so they couldn't afford like paying the membership dues, but that they still wanted to be like they wanted to be part of it, and like that's why they weren't like coming to meetings. So it was cool like using my Spanish and like letting her know like, oh, it's okay, and like that we like we would like want to being in the collaborative, and we would love to hear more about them, what they do, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think overall too, it's just like working with my fellows too. They were super supportive too in our peer-to-peer learning kind of meetings. Those were always fun and always cool. Um, just kind of like having like an hour just to like catch up and just say how our projects are going and share our projects too. Yeah, just because in like this remote world gets kind of lonely. And then sometimes you just see the same people like every single week. So like every other week seeing like my fellows, it was like cool just to catch up in life. And yeah, we would give each other advice and about like work and about like our personal lives too. Um, but yeah, it was super cool. Yeah, and I'll pass it to Natalie.
Yeah, I feel like Leah and Michelle kind of covered everything. I think that climate resolve is. I feel like I think I didn't know what to think coming in, but I feel like I think that was one of the best things I got out of this fellowship was actually seeing a work environment like I like and like seeing a work environment that shows people working towards a common mission and are also supportive about it and don't try to bring each other down. I feel like a lot of workplaces there can be a lot of drama or tension, but I feel like here I don't necessarily get that vibe. And I think Climate Resolve is one of those really lucky spaces that I feel like you could work at or intern or be a fellow at just because everybody's here is just trying to help you grow more and learn more and guide you to where you want to be one day. And I think I definitely got that from my supervisors, Chase and Gabriel. I feel like Gabriel was always supportive. I think he always pushed me to do more, to be more of a leader. And I think with Chase too, I think coming in from an education and mental health background, I was like, everything I know about climate is literally things like I picked up like through workshops or things I've just learned throughout my life. So I didn't really have a lot of that scientific understanding, but I feel like being on a team with Chase, like if I didn't understand something, he would explain it to me. And yeah, I didn't feel like smaller. I didn't feel anything. I felt like I was just like talking to a friend that was just sharing something with me. So I think that's one of the cool things here is just the work environment, how supportive it is. In terms of rewarding experiences, I feel like I've had a lot here. And I think a lot of it was from the Tree Ambassador program. I think our first tree distribution at the Canoga Park Youth Arts Center was really beautiful because we saw so many families coming up, picking trees, walking away with trees. Like it was nice to see like how much of the community really came out. And it was also nice to have like our tree ambassadors like see that result, see that result that we planned all together, that we all coordinated together. And yeah, distribute almost, I think, more than 120 trees in that space. Then another one too, I think with Ladwp plants. That was pretty cool too because we got LA Sanitation to bring free mulch. The line was like it was already formed before like I think 10 a.m., which was the start time, and it was just wild to see also how many people came out, even though we couldn't give away trees to every person. Every person was just excited as we were. And we also had our other team members from Arla come and join us. So I think it was just a beautiful community event, that I think highlighted the importance of trees, how much people love trees, how much people want to include trees like in their houses or like in their neighborhood. And I feel like it was just like a good example where all this collaboration is between like a community business partner, the city, and also like a climate justice organization like Climate Resolve. And I think, oh my God, and then I guess another rewarding experience has been the extreme heat worker report. I feel like, yeah. Yeah, I feel like I understood that farm workers, they didn't work in the best environments, but I feel like writing that report, I think it just changed my perspective so much about what can be done actually, to better support people who work in these vulnerable conditions, and the conditions that are more exacerbated by climate change. And I think it's weird because I feel like it fell into place because in January I had moved to the Central Valley. So like I felt like I was just kind of writing about it, but I think I didn't really see it until I moved there. And I was like, oh my God, like how is it that they're shading like grapes or they're shading like certain crops, but like there's no shade for these people? Or like I would see like the porta potties like literally located all the way at the end of like the field. So I think it really put into perspective that, farm workers do so much for the United States, but like it's, it's really unfortunate that there's not more protections for them. And same thing with warehouse workers, and, going back to like what Michelle said, like all these places where warehouse workers are going to work are going to be in extremely hot places located like in the Inland Empire. And they're also going to breathe in a lot of diesel from like trucks, and they're going to breathe in even more contaminated air. So I think it really opened my eyes to like, I don't have to do just change on a local level, but I could also work at the state or city level too. Like that's possible. You just have to work on mobilizing people to be consistent toward a goal and an objective. So yeah, I think Michelle wanted to share another experience, so I'm gonna pass it back to her.
No, yeah, with your report, it reminded me about my report too. Yeah, another kind of rewarding experience was like finishing up the landscape analysis draft. Well, landscape analysis report that I was like working on too, just because I knew that there was like stuff going on in the region, but I didn't know how much like climate action was already happening, like what kind of like what cities have done like their climate adaptation plans or like their local mitigation plans, all that kind of stuff. Um, or like any other like smaller like projects, like all the cooling centers or heating centers that they had out there. So it was like really cool, just going over like from like all the counties and like especially the county that I live in, like seeing like what cities are doing what, like and seeing that there is like climate action happening, and like seeing it like documented, and me being able to like gather that information, and hopefully like we can put it like on a website or something, or like people can like look at it and see like, oh, things are happening out there, like they're not just like not doing anything about it, like we just need more funding and more capacity too. But it was like super cool just seeing all that climate action happening, and also just being part of the collaborative too, and just hearing all kind of the sustainability leaders of the region, just saying like what they're up to, and just hearing the conversations. It was like super cool just seeing like all these people put like time in, like they're not getting paid to be part of the collaborative, but they want something better for the region. So it was really cool just being there and hearing them, and just just hearing them like see like what they want for the region and like how they want to do it. Just know that they're like, yeah, they're like super inspirational people too. But yeah, that's what I wanted to add on.
Thank you both again. I also like a lot of things came up while you both were talking.
Yeah.
I think to you, Nat, like I agree with the climate resolves culture, like being super not competitive. Like I think we talk a lot in the climate space about increasing like access to all this kind of information. And we do that in our work with community, but then a lot of times at the actual organizations, it's like super jargony and inaccessible, and you need all these degrees. And I feel like climate resolve kind of lives by like bringing people from the community into the organization and creating culture at the organization of actual learning and sharing. And it doesn't feel like super, the access to information doesn't seem super hierarchical. Like there's an interest in like sharing knowledge. And I think that's an exciting place to be in any subject and in any place. And yeah, I also agree with you. I think we all had like really large reports that we worked on that were super satisfying. I think when I was talking about rewarding experiences, I was talking about like day-to-day stuff and seeing people, but I think a lot of my actual rewarding experiences came from the work that we were able to do. I also I was wrote the access plan for Baldwin Hills that like we had been working on for like the team had been working on for like 2 years, and I'd been working on for like a year, but I got to put it together and kind of create the narrative of how it fits in. And I think we all also got to work on like a local level in communities that matter to us a lot, and all the way up to the state, as you imagine, where everything feels less daunting. It's like, oh yes, we can do that at the state level. We have the expertise to do that. Communities have the expertise to do that, and we can just like bring people to the conversation. And I think also understanding that like communities are not like homogenous. Like a lot of times people talk about like there's some kind of like mess, and then there's like disadvantaged communities, and they all want one thing, and like that's just not true. And I think at Climate Resolve, it's cool that you get to work with different regions. Like in PACE, we got to work with inland and coastal and tribal and all different areas of California. And there's really different climate needs, just like there's different other needs for every single community. And so paying attention to that, having nuance in climate, where we're usually really focused on like speed and scale, I think is really important. Like having not hindering action because of nuance, but creating solutions that actually work for specific communities, like with real listening. So those are just some things that came up for me. I think next we're going to talk a little bit about Climate Resolve in our own words, but I think in many ways we already did that in that answer. So I think I might pivot us to advice for future fellows and anyone joining this team. I can go ahead and get started. Something that came to me while Natalie was speaking was a recent video that I watched, was like, how can we be the best ancestors for future generations, right? Like how, and to me, when you're thinking about a career, and for early career fellows, like things that I was thinking about was kind of like a couple of different dimensions, right? There's like the issues that I care about and like the subject matter. So sort of like in the nonprofit world, that's like programmatically, like what are you interested in? Like the different kinds of issues, right? Then there's like the actual things that you do in your day-to-day, right? Because you can maybe be interested in climate change, but you don't actually at all enjoy organizing, or you don't enjoy science, or you don't enjoy different things. And so figuring out what kind of like tasks and roles you enjoy, and being open to having a variety of that early on in your career, and seeing what actually makes you happy in your day-to-day, right? And then what are you really good at? This is something that also comes like from, they're talking about this more in the environmental movement. Like if you've seen like Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, who wrote All We Can Save, she does like those Venn diagrams of like, yeah, what do you care about? What are you good at? And what do you love, or something, whatever I just said. But I think finding that intersection, right, that is not just like for the movement, but you'll be miserable, or not just like something that you're really good at, but you really don't feel grounded or aligned. And I think early on, it doesn't have to check all those boxes, right? You can just be exploring some of those, one or two of those elements. But to think about how can you pay attention to what brings you joy? Pay attention to who is interesting to you. Pay attention to when you're on a project and for some reason you really like this one versus the other, like why? And starting to dig into how can you do more of that work? How can you build on those skills? Who do you look up to, and why? And sometimes you don't know, and then you realize you're just drawn to, like, I didn't know that I enjoy capacity building work. I didn't even know that word before this year, but I found that like I really enjoyed that. So yeah, just paying attention, ask a lot of questions, be inquisitive and curious. I think people expect that from young staff, and then in return, young staff are like nervous and quiet, but actually our leadership and voices are important. And people who have been in this work for a long time they're maybe not fresh out of school, fresh with ideas, fresh on the ground, and like they want that to be challenged. Like they want to hear your voice, and especially at Climate Resolve, they'll like think about what you have to say. So just show up fully as yourself as much as you can and feel comfortable. And yeah, I guess the last thing that ties into my first thing of being good ancestors is like building towards something that you're proud of, and like showing up. Work is like a lot, and a lot of work can also just be about like supporting yourself and your family, which is really important. But thinking about how do you have your own sustainability in your career, like financially and also emotionally, like how you can keep showing up to this work without getting super burnt out in the beginning, or super like gung-ho about the issue, but unable to like stick in it. Because climate work, as many before me have said, is like a marathon, not a sprint. And like, how do you stay in it and offer your gifts is I think an interesting way to think about it. So keep being out there, keep being curious. And if you do come to Climate Resolve, I think you'll be in a good place. And I will continue to be here, which is exciting too. So I'm going to pass it on to Michelle.
Well, yeah, you just covered everything. So. Got what I want to talk about too, but yeah, I guess like what you were saying, that it's not like a marathon, like it's okay to take your time, and climate change can be like very daunting and very, a lot of people make it sound like very like super negative, like we can't do anything about it. Kind of another thing that I like about Climate Resolve too is that they make it all about like solutions rather than just talking about like all of these like these negative things that everybody said, like the world is ending, that kind of stuff, or like the icebergs are melting, about polar bears and all that stuff. But yeah, just to think about solutions, I think for me, like I always feel like a lot of climate anxiety, and I feel like it's like my job to go out there and like do this and this and that, and like sometimes I just like feel like stuck and being like, like what kind of job can I do that like allows me to like solve all these issues, like go out and like save polar bears and penguins, and but also stay here and like save my family and save warehouse workers, or like all that kind of stuff. But it sucks that like we're just one person, you can't do all that kind of stuff. But that's like one thing that I learned here is just to focus on solutions, like like take it like step by step, like what can you do right now. And yeah, like not, and don't be afraid to like collaborate. That's like one of the most important things here with climate change. We have to work together and not separately, right? We can't be like too siloed. Yeah, super important to work together. Yeah, like don't be afraid to like reach out to different people, to like communicate with like all like, yeah, climate change is like super intersectional. Like don't be afraid to like reach out, like even if like somebody doesn't know about climate change, like they can't, like it was like a health expert, like they're bound to know something about like air quality. But yeah, like yeah, taking it like little chunks by little chunks, both in like the climate change aspect and kind of in your whole kind of personal life aspect too. I've had to learn to do that too. Super hard, like in searching for jobs and stuff. It's just trying to do like everything all at once is like super hard. But yeah, taking things like step by step and taking things slowly, and also being like using your networks, and like through this fellowship, try to like make connections with like the people that you work with. If they like offer you help, and go ahead and take it. If they're like, oh, send me your resume, like go ahead and send it to them. If you want to go ask for like informational interviews, don't be afraid to do that. I was like super nervous to be like facilitating these meetings with like the collaborators that I was working with, because they were all like sustainability leaders, and they were like all like like big dogs and like where they're from and the sustainability world. They have like all this experience, and I was just like, oh, like like I'm like nobody, but like it's not how you should think about it. Like you have your own like personal experience too, and you have your studies too, and they're just people too. That's what I learned throughout the year too, is that they're just people, and and they're actually like super nice people, and they were always there to support me too, and like, and towards the end right now, is they're like asking like for like if I need help in like sending my resume to people that they know or that they're thinking of me. If they like see a job position open, that they'll like send it to me. And that's it. Yeah, that a lot of them are sending me like open job positions, or somebody invited me to be on the panel, which is like super cool. Yeah, but yeah, just don't be afraid to like reach out to these people. They might seem scary at first, but you can learn a lot from them, and they can learn a lot from you too. So yeah, I think that covers that. That's it, Natalie.
Yeah, I think Michelle and Leah kind of covered most of it. Definitely don't be afraid to ask questions. And I think kind of reiterating what Michelle said that, don't put yourself down. Sometimes I feel like it is really intimidating. I think when you come into spaces, especially when you have to work with like city officials, sustainability leaders, or like people from the state or at the federal level. But I think just really realizing that you're coming into this with a lot of knowledge too. Maybe maybe like you may have different experiences from that person, but that doesn't mean that what is of any less value, and I think it's really recognizing that, because I think I struggled with that too, because I had to talk to council district offices and I was like, oh my God, like I'm really intimidated. But it's like you talk to them and you realize, oh hey, they're normal people too. Like, I think it's important not to place certain people on a pedestal either. Or yeah, I feel like, because then I feel like that creates more intimidation, and yeah, it makes you feel farther away from being able to make that change and being able to like communicate a message to them. And I think another thing too, I was thinking about it is, what was it? Oh my God, I was thinking about it when you two were both talking. I think another thing was, oh my God, I forgot. Um, I think as someone who's like switched a lot in her career, I would say like take advantage of professional development opportunities. I think for me, as someone who I feel like is barely kind of figuring out like their career trajectory, I feel like when I was younger, I think I didn't get a lot of exposure to different things. I felt like I just had to go like from A, B, C, and D, and already be at my career, be at a good like at a further point. But like now that I'm older, like I'm able to sign up for like workshops or different trainings and really get a better sense of like, oh, so when people say a forester, I'm like, this is what they actually do. And it's not like, like it's not like what I had thought it was, but I think it's that exposure that really helps and really helps you understand that, yeah, what you really want to do and if that job might be a good fit for you. And I did want to touch upon is like just work environment. I think everybody should work in a space where they feel valued and where they feel respected. Because I feel like once you don't get that from your workplace, like it could be very hard to show up. And like what Leah said, like you just don't feel like, being, being a part of the work anymore, and I think that's what I really loved about Climate Resolve is that I'm working alongside people who are just as passionate as I am, just as understanding and just as like sympathetic. So I think really understanding like what work environment you flourish in is I think something really important to consider. And as you keep changing or keep like working different jobs, I think you'll get a better sense of what helps you flourish and what helps you like do better work and what kind of holds you back from doing that. So I think always keep that in mind and keep in mind like what makes you feel good at work and what doesn't make you feel good at work, so yeah, I think that's all I have for the next fellow who joins CR. They're in good hands with Leah and with everybody else on the team. CR is amazing.
Thank you. Okay, amazing. I think that will wrap our content for today. I think we're super inspired by each other and everything that we've learned, and look forward to the next generation of future awesome leaders who are coming up and going to join us. So
That's you.
join us. Thank you.